We'll try and keep our session mildly interesting to keep you away from the buffet outside. But the topic is actually, when I first saw the heading, there's a lot in there. And when I think about some of the challenges for these topics in the context of open data and open knowledge, I see many huge challenges actually on the horizon. We have the 3 Conference of Parties approaching rapidly. UNCCD, as we heard this morning, and GOLDN, I think, is doing a wonderful job of linking the geospatial capabilities to that convention. We have the UNFCCC, COP29, where for the first time countries, both Annex 1 and Annex 2, will be submitting biannual transparency report, and I highlight the word transparency because it relates directly to the concept of open data and open knowledge. And a lot of the data that should go into those biannual transparency reports should be based on best available geospatial data. And then we have the CBD COP, COP16 in Cali, where we have a new global biodiversity framework with 22 targets. 3 of them are area-based, and they need a lot of attention on geospatial side. So 3, I'd say, global needs, which is FAO, the countries are asking us for immediate support on at the moment as they prepare for either preparing their first BTR or submitting their targets against the GBF or, well, UNCCD, extremely well organised already using the LDN and the GOLDN architecture. And in parallel to that, in parallel to the 3 global Conference of Parties, we see some interesting things happening on the domestic level. We see very low confidence in carbon markets at the moment over the last couple of years, driven by a close examination of some of the baselines used in carbon markets. And now it's been fixed, but there is extremely low confidence in nature-based carbon markets at the moment, unfortunately. There is also a new demand side for really good geospatial data, and that is on the demand side regulations for agricultural products and forest products that are coming from the European Union and soon from the United Kingdom and the United States. These demand side regulations will request that producers, along with their products exporting to those markets, have very good geospatial data for where their products have been produced. So, interesting moment. I just see so many demands for capacity, for technical solutions that cover both carbon, biodiversity, and ecosystems. When we talk about ecosystems, I think we all know that countries and their ecosystems maps vary widely. So some countries have very good maps of their ecosystems, where the other countries have very coarse ecosystems maps. So any effort we can do to use geospatial information to harmonise and improve mapping of ecosystems would be a huge step forward. So many needs, a lot of them quite pressing, and I think we have an incredible set of technical presentations, and maybe I'd ask each of the presenters, when they're presenting their technical approach, to consider how that can contribute to one of these needs that we see. And it's also great that we're going to hear the needs from the local level that are often very different to the global drivers, the Conference of Parties, the domestic drivers, and are really focused on the needs at the local level. So a quick introduction, and without further ado, I will pass to Joseph to present on Digital Earth Africa. I invite you over here, Joseph. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and everyone here present. So I'll be talking about the wet transit tool to understand the aquatic ecosystems across the whole continent of Africa. So I want to go through those stuff because I think people are tired of seeing my face for several times today, but we understand the critical role of aquatic ecosystems and being water bodies in themselves, and also being wetlands, and also being other aquatic ecosystems. And that's why initially I was saying that Digital Africa has been put a lot of effort to understand the trend of water, being on a short term to understand the seasonality, especially using the Sentinel data and the Landsat data sets, but also the long term water monitoring using several type of sensors. But people were requesting, been requesting these things you are doing, giving some raster data are somehow too big to integrate in our systems. That's why the team developed a workflow to extract boundaries of all water bodies across the whole continent. And on this, people could derive some statistics on the extent of water bodies. And so far, 700,000 water bodies were identified across the whole continent. And you could either go to the sandbox, run some statistics, or could also go through our maps and also do some exploratory analysis, try to generate time series, high resolution time series on the trend of water bodies, or you can even download shape files and include them in your analysis on your PC. The other thing is the Wetland Insight tool paper to understand not only the trend of our water bodies, but also the trend of surrounding vegetation and whether the water body has been stable or not. And if they have not been stable, we should go back and assess what's due to natural hazards or even the climate change, or what's due to human activities. And especially human activities are very to manage, it's a matter of a decision. But if they are due to climate change, there should be some mitigation measures in place to deal with. And also currently in collaboration with the CSC and the RSMRD, we are developing a wetland workflow that would help us to understand the trends of all wetlands across the continent, not only to understand the water content, the vegetation extent, but also try to quantify some health indicators on wetland. And I think this should be a good tool in the pipeline. I hope Lisa was around because she's working on it, but unfortunately she has gone. So that was what I had to tell you about the wetland tool ongoing initiatives, and the two tools, water bodies and wetland tools, are operational right now, and another workflow at continental level is in the pipeline, and that's to be released soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. That was excellent timekeeping too. So we can move straight to Zheng Quang, sorry for the pronunciation, to present a remote sensing information system for dual carbon strategy. Please.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in China we call the carbon peaking and carbon neutrality as the dual carbon storage. So I will introduce remote sensing technology and satellite information to support this strategy. So there's very focus on the urgent problem needed in this century, climate change problems. And satellite observation is essential for these Earth's climate variables. So about 54 parameters can be observed by satellite globally. So it's important to develop such kind of information and to distribute. For this purpose, we developed a space climate observation and collaborative analysis application platform. This is under support of Space for Climate Observatory. Yeah. And just in this month, we plan to release a Green Book of China Space Climate Observatory for the global climate change response. So this book will describe China activity to use satellites support the climate change observation. For example, we develop also FISO system. This is a so-called flux and emission inversion system for satellite observation for the carbon emission from plants, from cities, and from agricultures. So this can provide us an advanced tool. This is example and the principles of this kind of systems. So use satellite information. In fact, we can monitor globally the carbon emission and help control the climate changes. Moreover, through societies, for example, atmospheric environment remote sensing society, we developed also batteries, and we want to connect remote sensing with atmospheric environment shortcuts. We sharing data and research works through this platform. For example, this data size and this some information projects, and we focus on also global score, air quality, and other important information. So we are dealing with these atmospheric components. This is one example how we think the ground challenges for the future for satellite remote sensing. So there's some examples. In these slides, we show the very quick evaluation of satellite spatial resolution. For example, from 90 kilometer to 2 kilometer only in 5 years. And after only 2 years, this improved to less than 100 meters. So technique advanced very quickly, and both in America, Canada, and in China, countries are pushing ahead using these advanced techniques from space to monitoring carbon emission. This is one example. China launched the Golfin 502 satellites, and this is an advanced satellite to can monitor air pollutions. And we also emphasize the use of modern and advanced techniques, algorithms to monitor the atmosphere more precise and more accurate. We also think the multi-role calibration of sensors and long-term data consistency is important. This is one example of China activities to control the air pollution in the past 15 years. So this covers shows very good improvement of air quality. So this another example shows we can use satellite to monitor coal burning power plant, bigger power plant over China. And from satellite, we can estimate the emission amount of these plants. This provides us a top-down approach to measure and control the emission of carbon. And we also need to develop advanced advantage to adapt to different satellites, including very high resolution satellites. This is one example. Beacon 1 satellite will launch earlier next year. It can be used to monitor, detect methane plumes, for example, over many regions, helps to control carbon emission. And this is an important tool, from my opinion, for the carbon management and data sharing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really fascinating work. Thank you for sharing it with us. I think now I suspect it's my turn to present. Yeah, and I think I'll present on behalf of FAO. I lead a team in FAO that works on forest monitoring and data platforms in the forestry division, but I'll also have a second hat on, and that is for the Global Forest Observations Initiative, which is a flagship initiative of GEO. So I'll talk about what we've been trying to do to tackle some of the challenges that I outlined in my opening statement, particularly related to forests, forest data, and the different conventions that we support. So yeah, I think it's for an open data and open knowledge session, I would like to present a little bit of a success story, and it wasn't easy for FAO to take this pathway, but 15 years ago, we identified dependencies in the countries we supported for commercial software, right? So we decided to, from scratch, start working on a fully open set of solutions to support countries, mainly on forest monitoring. And it's come a long way. And in a way, it's turned out to be quite a success story, because all the work, it's been funded by many different projects, but in a way, because it's open source and it all resides on GitHub, it's future-proofed. So if a burst of funding comes along to build out a platform for one specific purpose, when the project finishes, all the source code lives on in GitHub, ready for the next project to pick it up and keep building it. And this has been a successful evolution over the last 15 years. I'll talk about how this has actually had a real impact in terms of countries being able to monitor and report on their forests. I'll mention GFOI, and then some of the emerging needs that I mentioned at the start with relation to the CBD Global Biodiversity Framework. So yeah, launched 15 years ago in a room in FAO. We decided to take a fully open source pathway with at first just a couple of simple tools for collecting field inventory data, in situ data in the countries we support, and some very tools to do basic geospatial analysis. But over the last 15 years, with support from many donor governments and in collaboration with hundreds of countries, we've built quite a solid set of tools and platforms that are widely used. So almost 250,000 users. And our users are mainly, the target users sit within the ministries of the governments. They're the ones that have the impact, they're the ones that manage the resource. So we want them to be able to create their own data using these platforms and tools almost autonomously, and then use that data for decision making or for international reporting. So yes, it's been going a long time, and now we're integrating it, and you would have seen some great presentations from Zhongjin. We're integrating it into FAO's Digital Public Good portfolio, which is a really exciting initiative of FAO. There's some links here about how it has transformed data on forests, and one of the statements that I really like is that 90% of the countries that report to the UNFCCC, so the BTRs, to the climate COP, are using these tools and platforms. And for me, that is incredible impact. There's also a very nice interactive story that sort of brings that to life. Here's another paper where we drilled into all the climate submissions to the UNFCCC to see what geospatial data they're using and what technical solutions they're using, and really mapped it out in all its gory detail. So if you're interested in what countries are using when they report to climate convention, you'll find all the information in there, from Copernicus to Landsat to the new NICFI satellite data program, and a lot of our tools and platforms, which is very gratifying, and others as well. But one interesting thing that came out of this was that almost of the 100 countries, no countries use global data to report to conventions, which I found kind of surprising. But they do use global data for QA/QC, for check-in, for cross-referencing. Countries really like to generate their own data, and that's why I think that the solutions we created from 15 years ago are so popular, because it allows countries to actually create the data using the geospatial information that's available for something that they need and can use to report. So this is GFOI, and this has been a big driver of all that progress we've seen. It's really a partnership of support providers that support countries on forest data, and you'll see it consists of donors, of FAO, of CEOS, and really has different components that try to tackle different pieces of the challenge to help forest countries have really strong forest data. And it's been successful, as we've just seen. And now, with the adoption of the GBF, which is very exciting for everybody, we almost have to rethink, we have to think about what we've achieved for climate and now apply that to biodiversity. So as FAO, we're sort of retrofitting some of the platforms that we've developed, configuring them toward monitoring and setting targets for the GBF. And I'll mention one in particular. So hopefully we all know that the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration was launched a few years ago, and then we were really excited that the Global Biodiversity Framework adopted Target 2, which gives us a target of 30% of degraded ecosystems under restoration by 2030. And the indicator is area under restoration. So you can see straight away the importance of geospatial data in this. So we worked very hard with many organizations through a big collaborative network to basically work out how we could do this for different ecosystems. And we built a geospatial architecture actually building on FAO's core geospatial architecture, which was presented by Zhongjin as well in the agroinformatics division. So yeah, the firm, it exists. I think we have data for about 100 countries, and the driving purpose is that it helps countries set a target for GBF Target 2 and measure progress for that target as we move toward 2030. So it has many functionalities. You can register your own restoration project. It has many links to different geospatial tools to help you do what you need to do. It has a search engine where we have many, I think over 1,000 restoration good practices. And we're developing a dashboard which will be linked directly to the CBD online reporting tool. So all the data systems for restoration and Target 2 are talking to each other quite seamlessly. So that's it. Sorry, a lot of information, but I hope it was useful. So now I pass to Mario Vargas for, I think, a much more interesting presentation. So please, Mario, I invite you to the podium. Thanks.
Una vez más quisiera dirigirme un saludo desde la Amazonía con todos los presentes y también colegas que son parte del panel.
Once again, I would like to welcome everyone and
Para los pueblos indígenas, la importancia de la biodiversidad desde los conocimientos propios de cada pueblo es fundamental para el planeta.
for indigenous people, indigenous knowledge is fundamental for biodiversity protection.
Hoy mismo podemos notar que nuestras comunidades, nuestros territorios, están siendo explotados por empresas que están afectando a los ríos, al aire y también a la tierra.
Today, we are witnessing the exploitation of nature by companies that are exploiting the rivers and the resources.
Como un indígena amazónico, estoy preocupado porque en estos últimos años nuestros ríos se están secando, el ambiente ya no es lo mismo y entonces nosotros como seres humanos, aparte de los pueblos indígenas, tenemos que hacer la conciencia ambiental para poder salvar al planeta y también salvar a la humanidad.
As an indigenous Shuar, I'm really concerned about the status of biodiversity. The rivers are drying up, the climate is changing, and as humanity, we must have conscious of what is happening to our climate.
Son motivos y razones que nosotros alzamos la voz ante el mundo, ante el planeta, ante los amigos, que tenemos que hacer una gran minga para poder salvar, para poder dejar una herencia a nuestra generación, lo que es la única herencia que tenemos, lo que es el planeta, la tierra, la biodiversidad.
This is the reason why we raise our voices both locally and globally. We need to work together to ensure that we find solutions to this climate crisis.
Para nosotros los pueblos, la naturaleza es nuestra casa, nuestro mercado, porque podemos encontrar en ello todo lo que ustedes como los que están en la ciudad encuentran en un mercado, en un supermaxi.
For us, the jungle is our home, but it's also our store. As for you in the cities where you go and buy things, we use the jungle to give us all the resources that we need. It even works as a pharmacy.
Igualmente, frente a la situación que estamos viviendo en nuestros pueblos, también tenemos iniciativas que nos pueden ayudar a salvar a nuestro planeta.
We also have our own solutions to ensure that we can solving the issues that the planet is facing.
Desde muy joven a mí siempre me gustó plantar, sembrar plantas. Estas plantas son de diferentes especies. Dicho esto, he venido trabajando como un proyecto que se llama Shakem. Shakem es un protector de la selva que siembra para la humanidad.
Since I was a little kid, I've always loved to plant seeds, plant different species of seeds, and I've recently started a project called Shakaim. Shakaim in the indigenous cosmology, in the Shuar indigenous cosmology, is a being that protects nature and plants seeds.
Entonces, lo que queremos es estas plantas que nosotros estamos plantando, medir cuánto los pueblos indígenas estamos aportando al planeta, los nuevos pulmones para la humanidad.
So what we want to do with this project is we want to calculate the carbon stored by these new plants that we are planting, how much carbon is stored in the lungs of our planet.
Y como educación ambiental, como pueblo, antes de venir aquí, yo he dejado plantando algunas plantas más y yo invito a la gran minga de que podamos seguir plantando más árboles, más vida para poder tener una vida sana.
And for environmental education, before I came here, I planted seeds, and I invite everyone to do the same when they get back home, to plant more seeds.
Y dejo invitando al público que los que no conocen la Amazonía puedan viajar a conocer este jardín tan importante que es para el mundo. Muchas gracias.
And I invite everyone to come and visit the Amazon, this very important garden for all of humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mario, for sharing that with us. Actually, I'm so impressed. I think every session has had an Indigenous perspective. And as we move now toward COP16, I'm also super impressed at how integrated Indigenous voices are in the CBD process. It's really an exciting moment. But a lot more to do, So now I invite our final speaker, Sanita from Ikimod AP-Bon, to talk about biodiversity and evidence-based policy in practice, please.
Hello, everyone. I think this is not the slide. Because since first day I have been speaking, so there are so many changes in the slides. So today I want to be really very brief. I do not want to be in between lunch and this presentation. So until they really open the slides, I will be talking about AP Bond. Since first day, we have been talking a lot about collaboration, partnership, networks. So today, I'll be talking about the AP Bond, a network in the Asia-Pacific region that really works for the biodiversity monitoring and observation. And here, my friend Alice from the University of Hong Kong and myself, Sunita, we are representing AP Bonn, which is the secretariat is based at, hosted by the Ministry of Environment, Japan. So AP Bonn, what is AP Bonn? How many of you know about AP Bonn, the Asia Pacific Biodiversity Observation Network? So it is one of the wing of the GeoBond supported by, hosted at GEO. So the main aim of this AP Bond, maybe we can go to the next slide. So it is a network of institutions and research groups across the Asia-Pacific region. And then we really want to contribute to our knowledge resource base for research, for decision making, but also strengthen science on biodiversity. So we have very small group also focusing on terrestrial biodiversity, but also there is another group called Marine Biodiversity Science called MP Bond. So that is also hosted in Japan by Jamstack. So what is the mission of this AP Bond is we really want to, as already said, contribute to decision making, but also we want to build the capacity and also facilitate the utilization of the existing biodiversity data, because there are so many data across the Asia Pacific region, but there is no platform where we can come together and then also work together to address the biodiversity challenges in this region. So that's why we do a lot of our activities are really focusing on biodiversity mapping, identification of key drivers across the region. The management committee is, we have 3 chairs currently now by Japan, Thailand, and Malaysia, and then we have 13 board members which represent the institution from across the region. The secretariat is hosted by the Biodiversity Center of Japan, and we have 3 focus working groups focusing on terrestrial, marine, and freshwater ecosystem. To support the AP Bond, we also have national bond across the Asia-Pacific region, and some of them are like China Bond. We have Sino Bond, we have ASEAN Center for Biodiversity hosting that region, and also we have Nepal Biodiversity Bond who really come together and share their data on biodiversity. And we do collaborate with AOGO, GeoBond, ILTER, and also KBA as Secretariat. Some of the glimpses that we are doing a lot of research in this region is that we are trying to explore the plant species diversity, because when we are talking about the Southeast Asia tropical region, many species also in the Himalayas are still not explored. So we are trying our best to promote the science, especially the institute data observation in plant diversity, but also we are trying to map out ecologically and biological significant areas across the region, and then we are also trying to assess the impacts of key drivers such as hydropower, dams, climate change on biodiversity and ecosystem services. So in gist, what we want to say that biodiversity loss is a global problem, but in this region, this is one of the major drivers of, this is major challenge, and then when we see the climate and the extraction of resources, these two are the major drivers of change to biodiversity loss, but there is a lot to do in this region. We need to have multiple dimensions of biodiversity data, which is lacking in this region. Especially at the genetic level, we have very limited data sets on that. And also that's why, because biodiversity is really at the nexus between climate, food, water, so that's why we want to develop inter and multidisciplinary research and also fill the observation data by promoting in situ as well as the satellite observation so that we can fill these gaps. And we want to promote the data sharing and generation, and also we want to promote the value chain across the observation, analysis, intelligence, and decision making. Our ultimate goal is to promote informed decision making in this region. And then in the few years, by 2030, we really want to promote this interdisciplinary research and also promote the data sharing so that and we are also working on biodiversity essential EVVs so that we can contribute and support the governments of the Asia Pacific region to achieve their targets of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. I think if you are not part of this network, if you are based in Asia Pacific region, please do join us and be with us to achieve the biodiversity targets of by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunita. Well, we actually have time to take some questions from the floor. Some really interesting presentations. Thank you all so much for sharing very diverse presentations. Yeah, it'd be great to hear from the audience on anything you've heard from any of the speakers or anything you think we've missed when we talk about ecosystems, carbon, biodiversity. Please, the floor is open. Maybe we're just a bit too close to lunch. Well, I think if there's no questions, would any of the panelists like to ask each other a question, or any interesting reflections from what you've heard from your other presenters? Oh, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So Bentililia B here. I have a question for about the carbon monitoring. You were showing a lot of the capabilities to measure, but could you say something about the challenges you were meeting when doing that?
Yeah, for the challenges, I think first is the data policy itself, because in China we have launched many satellites, but limited by some data policy. The free data size is not well done at the present stage. So we are pushing ahead the advance of commercial satellites. For example, the last satellite I introduced, the Beacon 1, is the commercial one. So from the both this satellite, the data policy will be easier, and in the framework of scientific research, such kind of carbon monitoring data should be freely distributed, access for all researches and studies. Thank you.
I have a question for Mario. And the question is, what GEO could do to monitor the loss of biodiversity, the destruction of the ecosystems within the Amazonia, because this is also data. It's not positive data, but it is data. And as we heard on the session before, data can be in the multiple forms. It can be pictures, it can be what GEO can do to collect this constant destruction and somehow raise a voice towards enhancing the protection at member state level.
Creo que en este momento necesitamos capacitar a más jóvenes, tener lo que es la tecnología. También invito a los otros colegas, los que tienen la ciencia, los datos, de cómo medir, cómo mirar los impactos, porque apenas nosotros estamos recién iniciando a monitorear y a obtener los resultados de manera in situ.
GEO can support by providing capacity development for the youth, by providing technology, by inviting colleagues who monitor the Amazon and have the data to share it, to share the impacts. And because we just started monitoring and collecting the data, but we need to work together.
Yo creo que también los países desarrollados o los amigos que tienen poder, es más fácil financiar para la destrucción de la naturaleza. Sería fundamental de financiar para proteger a la naturaleza. Entonces, frente a eso, lo que miramos es un fondo de emergencia ambiental.
The countries that have the power, for them it's easier to finance projects that destroy nature. However, what they should be doing is to finance projects that protect nature. And what we also need are emergency funds for nature protection.
En este momento mismo en la Amazonía, por ejemplo, hay una explotación súper grande, lo que es el tema de la minería, el tema de la explotación petrolera. No hay remediación cuando hay derrame del petróleo. Y bajo de esos ríos que van están nuestros hermanos, nuestras familias, nuestros pueblos, la juventud, la niñez. Y muchas veces, como no hay monitoreo, el mundo desconoce lo que está pasando, a lo menos en la Amazonía.
In this very moment in the Amazon is being exploited by oil and mining companies. And when there is an oil spill and the communities, the youth, the children, they are the ones who are affected and there is no compensation. And because there is no monitoring as well, the world usually doesn't know what's happening at the ground level in the Amazon. Thank you.
Well, if I can, my understanding is that Mario brings a philosophical and with this cosmic culture and a philosophical approach to what we do, and connecting that, I don't know if we can connect that with some KPIs, with some of indicators of the SDGs. which are the one which are connected. I don't know if we can make this mapping, but it brings something which is fundamental, that we do not have to forget that human and the nature is one, and that, okay, we work on indicators, we work on data, sometimes this becomes very abstract, we work to support decision, to develop the business, but they fight also against big businesses and big amount of money. So we have to do all that in respect of the global Earth, because we do not have a plan B, as it was said before. And that is, I think that this is what it brings regularly. And we have to find this good mapping and understanding and remind it regularly. But it does it so well.
While we wait for the microphone to head back, I think the CBD process is really leading the way in this. They have articles that try to capture this intangible, and I think I'm not an expert on it, but I know there's been a long discussion on 8J and a traditional knowledge indicator that's been proposed, to indicator 22. And I think is of the three Rio conventions, it's sort of leading the way because it has the freshest, I'd say, framework. So I think there's a lot of potential there. We get it right, and they have deep engagement from Indigenous peoples. I think the notification just went out with over 100 Indigenous peoples groups attending Kali, which is really positive.
Okay. Thank you very much for a very excellent presentation. You know, the mentor for GEO beyond 2025, from vision to action. For ecosystem, biodiversity, and management, we really need to take actions. So this question to each panel member. So what can we do from your personal perspective to empower the general public to take action with GEO? Okay.
First, I would like to just add to Mario's what he said in terms of indigenous, and also what Julian, you have been saying. So what I see missing and how GEO can really support in terms of indigenous knowledge is like, there is no meaningful integration of indigenous knowledge at the local level, especially in the decision making. So maybe GEO can really support, advocate, like how to integrate meaningfully indigenous knowledge into decision making, especially at the local and national scale. We have a strong system coming very strongly through 8J and other, we have Target 23 and other traditional knowledge at the global scale, and NBSAP is one of the tools that we can really materialize at the national and the local scale. But sometimes, you know, the indicators are not strong enough to integrate this meaningful indigenous knowledge in the decision making. So GEO can really support and highlight and advocate and push to integrate such indigenous knowledge into decision making system, and also in situ data observation. Because sometimes scientists go observe and take the data from there without letting the indigenous and local communities know about this. So this is just the general case everywhere. So I think we need to also promote, there is a citizen science coming out very strongly, but we really need to push hard for the citizen science, because now we are talking a lot about whole of society approach, right? So my request to GEO community on behalf of indigenous people, also supporting Mario, is that we really need to advocate the meaningful integration of their knowledge into our system. The one with how we can do improve the ecosystem and biodiversity monitoring is, if we see from across the Asia-Pacific region, the governments and also the private company, have a lot of data sets. What is the challenge? Main challenge is the sharing, is the access to each other, the trust with each other. We are just working, I have also mentioned before that we are just working within our boundaries. the crisis that we are facing is not seeing the boundaries. They are beyond the boundaries, but we are still trying to work within the boundaries. So that's why from individual perspective, I really see that we need to, while working on data or anything, I know we need to consider the geopolitical aspects, but access to data is important, and I think geo community, we really need to push hard on access to these data sets, especially from biodiversity and ecosystem perspective, which are specifically transboundary at the beyond the boundaries. We need to push on this access, and then using those data in our decision making. So that would be my 2 points.
No, thanks that's a great question. I think we have the tools, the data, and we have the capacity amongst ourselves. And I think now the challenge is really transferring that technology to the people that need to use it, right? So we really need to focus even more on capacity development, make it really inclusive. So as an example, we're running at the moment a massive open online course on forest monitoring for climate action. And I was so happy. We actually had over 1,000 Indigenous peoples register and are following that course alongside the thousands of government technicians who we normally have. Because making capacity development inclusive also to the women and the youth, we've really been focusing on that, and I think it's the only way forward. So yeah, some way, and also just raising awareness of what is available. I don't think people realize how much technology, how much data is actually available and how useful it can be for what they need to do. So very much, I think, in the spirit of the theme, really Earth intelligence for all, I think. But yeah, more capacity development. Thanks.
Can I jump in with a question or comment? So we've had various comments on how GEO can monitor biodiversity better, and I just wanted, as the other GeoBon, APBon representative here, to take that a bit further, because there's a couple of major elements I think could be built on. We're in North Asia at the moment, and yet we've had almost no Southeast Asian speakers throughout the last 4 days. And to me, that marks a lack of inclusion across the Southeast Asian region. And Southeast Asia is a global biodiversity hotspot, has the highest rate of mining in the tropics, has some of the highest rates of deforestation in the world. And so when we are having a meeting in Asia, we are not representing most of the region, it shows that we need to do more work at redoubling our action across this region, because without local dialogue and local inclusion, we can't develop better indicators. And this is a global biodiversity hotspot, but it's one that almost always gets forgotten, because Europe works with Africa to build capacity, to build better data. North America works with South and Central America. Asia just gets forgotten. So we need to work harder within that remit. In terms of indicators, biodiversity is hard. Climate, relatively easy to measure. Biodiversity presents a wicked set of problems, many of which are fairly intractable. But there are indicators we are getting better at monitoring. Just in the last week, there was another paper out showing that we need better measures of intactness of ecosystems. Now, that's not just for forests, but we need things like better indicators of grassland degradation, because if we look across Central Asia, we have some of the most diverse grasslands in the planet, but we have problems with overgrazing, and we have poor products to actually measure and monitor that. We have the development of hyperspectral imagery to monitor phenology and diversity in Amazonian forests, but again, that has almost been completely untouched within the context of Southeast Asia. And so there are a whole suite of different Earth intelligence products which are massively useful for indicating components of biodiversity, but they haven't really been developed in this region, and they haven't been calibrated in many regions. And I think there is a rich scope for future collaboration and a huge amount of work ahead of us. But also in the context of the Kunming to Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, we are desperately aware of the need for better indicators. And by the time we get to 2030, we will be revisiting that indicator framework. IPBES is currently doing an assessment of what that index needs to look like,
but we need to be working towards better, more representative indicators for biodiversity, harnessing the diversity of expertise in rooms like these, and the new technologies that allow us new insights into our ability to literally take the pulse of the planet. So more a comment, but hopefully something that will stimulate further thought and action. Thank you.
Bueno, yo pido también al mundo de que nosotros como alianza, indígena, los que estamos en las comunidades, vivimos la realidad, necesitamos soporte, apoyo económico. Y también a los amigos de buen corazón, hagamos una red y invito una vez más a conocer, pero para los que no pueden hacer una contribución a los niños, a esos niños que siembran esperanza con sus plantas, con su sabiduría. La Alianza Indígena es muy nuevo y sí necesitamos un apoyo constante para poder seguir luchando por nuestra naturaleza.
Thank you. He's answering the question from the gentleman before, and he's saying that the Geo-Indigenous Alliance needs support. They need financial support to continue to monitor biodiversity at a local level, and the communities in indigenous territory as well, they need constant financial support. So he's inviting everyone again to both come and visit the Amazon and to support the communities. Thank you.
I'm Frédéric Brotard from the French Space Agencies, and have a question related to the digital twin Africa, Digital Earth Africa, to Joseph. Two questions actually. Is it easy for you to measure the number of users of the platform? And the second one is, what is your policy to integrate external data, but using your sandbox? I explain myself. We are currently developing some free data, open data related to the deforestation. In Africa, there is a full Gabon that has been implemented. All the data are linked right now to the World Environment Situation Room of UNEP. We also have our own portals. And the question is, would it be possible for the DEA to integrate this kind of data?
Thank you, sir. Definitely, we always regularly monitor the users of our sandbox, even the maps, because there are two main platforms. I think initially we were around 200,000 maps users. That's for the last 2 years. And also for the sandbox, which was a little bit technical, we were around, I think, 50,000. But I can share statistics with you, because this is the only indicator that should allow us to tell people that you're having impact. Definitely, we do this several times. Even with the ones visiting our social media, even the website, we take statistics to be sure we are impacting people. Integration of data from other sources, yes, we do, because all data sets we are using are not ours. We are using APIs to try to connect with other data sources. We have some climatic data. We have like chips, climatic data. We have like grow mangrove watch data sets. Last time we had indexed the NFC data sets. And of course, the ones you're providing also are the most welcome, because the idea not to develop ours, because you know that for someone to do a large wide assessment, we should integrate a lot of data sources and come out with an informative results. So definitely, maybe I reach out to you to get more details about data sets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I've been told to wrap up, but we hit a gold streak there. That was fabulous. Thanks for your interest, and big thanks to all the panelists again. And please take a survey. Yes, and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Yeah, just a final announcement. After lunch, please come back because we will be having our keynote from the founder of the Alibaba Cloud and former CTO, Dr. Jian Wang. So that's it, happening at 2 o'clock. Have a lovely lunch and see you all later. Bye-bye.